The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from USA Today for today, Wednesday, February 4th, 2026. Your reader for this hour is David Frothingham. The lead headline on today's USA Today reads, Hefty bills catch patients off guard. Facility fees come from hospitals you didn't even visit. By Ken Alltucker, USA Today. During a routine visit to a medical office in suburban Boston, Suzanne McGuire had a small plug put in her tear duct to treat persistent dry eye. She paid $600 for the procedure, which took just a few minutes. Weeks later, the Arlington, Massachusetts woman was mailed a second bill for about $600. She thought it was a billing error and called the doctor's office, but an employee explained it wasn't a mistake. The second bill included a facility fee charged by Boston-based Mass Eye and Ear, an affiliated hospital McGuire never set foot in. McGuire, a financial planner, scrutinizes medical bills because she has a health insurance plan with a $3,000 deductible, the amount she must pay before coverage kicks in. The hospital bill for a suburban doctor visit flummoxed her. It was shocking, McGuire said. I was 15 miles away from the hospital. In a statement, Mass Eye and Ear said the suburban medical office is a hospital licensed facility and it is transparent about its billing practices. Hospitals are increasingly buying independent doctors' offices and clinics and levying hospital fees for such non-emergency visits. In 2024, about 55% of doctors worked for a hospital or health system, more than double the rate in 2012. People who visit these hospital-owned clinics might get two bills, one from the doctor and a second from the hospital, even if they've never received care within the hospital. In other cases, consumers get a single bill itemized with charges from the healthcare provider and the hospital. The hospital fees for doctor or clinic care can range from $50 to more than $1,000, and often are assessed without warning patients, according to the Outpatient Outrage 2026 report released January 29th by the U.S. Public Interest Research Group, or PIRG. PIRG officials said the report highlights a growing trend of hospitals charging fees for routine care. People often visit a doctor's office or clinic to prevent health conditions from worsening. Such outpatient care delivered at a doctor's office or clinic is usually less costly than hospital care. Quote, the whole point of preventive care is to save costs overall and make sure people are going for regular checkups, said Patricia Kelmar, PIRG's Senior Director of Healthcare Campaigns. Yet now we're getting billed as if we'd been lying in a hospital bed. The American Hospital Association said facility fees provide resources hospitals need for round-the-clock emergency and trauma care at hospital emergency rooms. Beyond inpatient care, the association said, hospital-owned outpatient clinics often take care of sicker patients and face stricter regulations. Quote, facility fees are an important way that hospitals may bill for costs to maintain all the essential services and capacity they provide to their patients and communities, especially as Medicare and Medicaid continue to underpay hospitals and commercial health insurers increasingly delay or deny coverage for care, said Molly Smith, American Hospital Association's Group Vice President for Policy, but consumers are struggling to pay the unexpected charges. $14,000 in extra fees. Todd Bash of West Covina, California, was billed more than $14,000 in facility fees for an injection he received at a hospital-owned pain clinic in Los Angeles. A health insurer reimbursed the hospital more than $1,800, and Bash paid more than $450. Frustrated, Bash asked his insurer to provide a list of area pain clinics that were part of the insurer's network. He called the providers on the list, but most were hospital-owned and didn't take his insurance. He eventually found an independent clinic that charged him just $37 for a pain injection. The PIRG report said a New Mexico woman paid more in facility fees than she did to healthcare practitioners during multiple visits to a hospital-owned primary care clinic and a specialist in 2025. A nurse practitioner billed $73 and a hospital charged a $92 fee for the same visit. The hospitals are adding fees at outpatient clinics and offices they own for medical services such as routine checkups, mammograms, colonoscopies, and telehealth appointments, PIRG said. Massachusetts resident McGuire paid $180 for each of several telehealth appointments in 2024 with a nurse practitioner who prescribed an anxiety medication. Beginning in 2025, the mental health hospital that employed the nurse practitioner added facility fees that more than doubled the charges. When McGuire first complained about the extra charges, the nurse practitioner wasn't aware the hospital fees were being assessed. So McGuire switched to a non-hospital telehealth prescriber and now pays $120 per appointment. States scrutinize surprise bills. Research suggests hospitals that buy outpatient clinics and surgery centers often drive up costs for people seeking non-emergency care. Older Americans on Medicare pay 2 to 4 times more for services at a hospital-owned outpatient department compared with an independently owned physician office, a study funded by Arnold Ventures reported. Several states are scrutinizing hospital fees for outpatient care, and consumer advocates urge better protections and disclosure for patients. 22 states have passed laws or regulations to address facility fees, said Christine Monahan, assistant research professor at Georgetown Center on Health Insurance Reforms. State laws often aim to help consumers through better disclosure or other protections. Quote, "They're going to help consumers not get these surprise out-of-pocket bills," Monahan said. Monahan said consumers often don't have the cash to afford the extra fees. Consumers with insurance often must pay deductibles or coinsurance, which requires people pay a percentage of their medical bill. "Every dollar really counts," Monahan said. "These charges showing up in more and more locations is a real problem for consumers in their day-to-day lives." Monahan also said hospital facility fees also drive U.S. health spending higher for government health programs such as Medicare, Medicaid, and private insurance companies. Insurance companies then raise monthly premiums for employers who sponsor health insurance plans for employees and for people who purchased Affordable Care Act coverage. Americans who buy their own ACA insurance coverage are paying sharply higher costs because enhanced tax credits expired at the end of 2025. KFF, a health policy nonprofit, estimated average costs for 22 million Americans who get subsidized ACA insurance more than doubled in January. A KFF tracking poll released January 29th reported healthcare affordability as Americans' top economic worry in 2026. About 1 in 3 respondents said they are very worried about their ability to afford care. Healthcare topped other common affordability concerns, including paying for groceries, rents or mortgages, utility bills, and gasoline and transportation, the KFF poll showed. Watchdog seeks action. PIRG officials said states and consumers can take steps to protect themselves from unexpected medical charges. Before getting care at a doctor's office or clinic, consumers should ask office staff whether they will be charged facility fees. Insurers might balk at paying hospital fees for an outpatient visit. That leaves the consumer with extra costs they must pay out of pocket, Kelmar said. The PIRG report also recommended states enact stricter rules to limit fees and protect consumers. Although 22 states have enacted some changes, none have eliminated extra fees hospital charge at outpatient locations. PIRG recommends states adopt a same service, same price standard to prohibit price differences. PIRG also recommends that states 1. Protect patients by prohibiting facility charges for routine outpatient care. 2. Require all providers to have a unique billing identifier that would allow consumers and insurers to clearly see which provider is billing them, rather than allowing a single billing identifier for all locations a hospital or other entity might own. And 3. Require public reporting of all facility charges and payments. The next headline reads, "Will Bad Bunny be good for ratings? For the NFL's big game, it's about top visibility," by Pamela Avila. If the NFL's goal is to go global, then who should be on the world's biggest stage, one of the world's biggest musicians? The world's biggest artist happens to be a proud Puerto Rican who speaks Spanish, who performs in Spanish, who represents for his culture, and who makes other people proud to be Puerto Rican, to be Latino, and to be themselves, says Vanessa Diaz, a Loyola Marymount University professor who has taught courses on 2026 Super Bowl 2026's Super Bowl halftime show headliner Bad Bunny. As the countdown to the big game on February 8 winds down, it's clear just how politicized Bad Bunny's upcoming performance has become. Quote, "The best decision in terms of superstar status also happened to be a really politicized musical figure, and that's detention. These two things don't always coincide, but in this moment they did," says Diaz, co-author of PFKNR, How Bad Bunny Became the Global Voice of Puerto Rican Resistance. Bad Bunny as headliner makes sense and money. The NFL's push for international growth has been in place long before Bad Bunny, who made Grammys history on February 1st when his Debí Tirar Más Fotos became the first Spanish-language album of the year winner, was announced as the halftime headliner. Its international series has been bringing select regular season games to cities in England, Mexico, Germany, and Brazil, among others, for almost 20 years. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell has said the league wants to expand to new countries and eventually have each team play a game abroad every season. President Donald Trump has a slew of conservative politicians have questioned or outright opposed the NFL's decision to pick Bad Bunny. Trump called the choice absolutely ridiculous. Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem said U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers will be all over the event. Conservative commentator Tommy Lahren claimed Bad Bunny was not an American artist, despite Puerto Ricans being American citizens. Turning Point USA, founded by the late conservative activist Charlie Kirk, is putting on the All-American halftime show as counter-programming to Bad Bunny. On February 2nd, the organization announced Kid Rock, Brantley Gilbert, Lee Brice, and Gabby Barrett will perform, with spokesman Andrew Colvett saying in a press release, "The All-American Halftime Show is an opportunity for all Americans to enjoy a halftime show with no agenda other than to celebrate faith, family, and freedom." Kid Rock took a more confrontational approach, saying, "We're approaching this show like David and Goliath. Competing with the pro football machine and a global pop superstar is almost impossible, or is it?" He said he's having a dance party, wearing a dress, and singing in Spanish. Cool. We plan to play great songs for folks who love America. Diaz says, "You can't be against it, but if you understand business, then you would understand why they made this choice. It's historically significant, and it is something that Latinos need, that Spanish speakers need, that migrants and young people need." According to an October survey by Quinnipiac University, 48% of Americans approve of the NFL's headliner decision, while 29% disapprove and 24% did not offer an opinion. Nearly 3 in 4 Democrats said they approve. More than 3 in 5 Republicans opposed the choice. Black and Hispanic adults favored Bad Bunny as the headliner versus white respondents, the survey adds. Bad Bunny then becomes this target for everything that's happening politically right now, Diaz adds. It's an incredibly complicated and interesting moment that we'll be talking about forever. Latinos are the fastest growing fan base for the NFL. In recent years, Latinos have also become the fastest growing fan base in the NFL, according to NPR, citing that today's league has grown its market in Mexico and Latin America enormously, with the 2 largest international markets being Mexico and Brazil. For its first exclusive YouTube broadcast from Brazil, the NFL tapped Karol G to perform at halftime. The Colombian star has also risen to global stardom and will be the first Latina artist to headline at Coachella in April. So the quickest way for the NFL to expand their consumer base as much as possible is to, get the #1 global artist right now to perform at your game, says award-winning KCRW podcast host Sam Sanders. The NFL's choice to put Bad Bunny on the halftime show stage then becomes, if not above all, a business-savvy gamble for the multi-billion-dollar industry. We're hitting that critical mass of 20% of the population being Latino with $4.1 trillion spending power, and Bad Bunny is such a household name that it's kind of a hole-in-one moment, says Darlene Lopez, founder and managing director of Evoke Creative. Ultimately, they're being a little risky, and it's going to pay off. It helps that Bad Bunny boasts countless partnerships with top brands, including Adidas, Gucci, Calvin Klein, Crocs, Cheetos, WWE, and Hennessy. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 15 minutes past the hour. Bad Bunny's record-breaking history could boost NFL's ratings. Since his 2018 debut album, Bad Bunny has reached peaks in his career time and time again. He's broken records with his 31-date historic Puerto Rico residency, is the first artist with all Spanish album to win the prestigious Grammy Album of the Year, and for the fourth time has been named Spotify's Global Top Artist, beating out Taylor Swift in 2025. Despite calls to replace him as a headliner, though, the NFL doubled down and backed Bad Bunny as one of the leading and most popular entertainers in the world. Ultimately, it's about top visibility for the NFL, says President of Apex Marketing Eric Smallwood, whose company evaluates sponsorships, brand partnerships, and campaigns for corporate brands. The NFL cares for viewers that tune in specifically for the halftime show and may not tune in for the game because it's about drawing eyeballs and bringing in as many people as possible, Smallwood says. You'll see a lift at halftime because the average viewer doesn't turn the halftime show off, regardless if they know the artist or not. Kendrick Lamar's 2025 halftime show performance became the most watched of all time, with 133.5 million viewers. The actual football game between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs also rounded out one of NFL's most successful ratings, with an average of 126 million viewers. Per Fox, viewership peaked during the second quarter of the game. Since the NFL partnered with Jay-Z and Roc Nation to produce the Apple Music halftime show in 2019, artists including Shakira, Jennifer Lopez, The Weeknd, Usher, Rihanna, to name a few, have hit the stage. There's been this narrative that makes it seem as if so many of the halftime shows since then have been problems because they're too political, or it's a cultural mess and a landmine for the NFL, Sanders says. But the ratings have never dropped, and by booking Bad Bunny, they're proving that their intentions are bigger than whatever the political chatter around the halftime show is in America. The next headline on today's USA Today front page reads, Speed Skater closes in on Olympic history. Jordan Stoltz could bring home 4 golds for USA, by Nancy Armour, columnist, USA Today. Dateline is Milwaukee. Jordan Stoltz was too quiet. He'd taken an iPad to his room, and it was well past the time when he should have come back out with it. Stoltz and his older sister Hannah weren't allowed on screens much, and when they were, it was for a limited amount of time. Stoltz's father, Dirk, figured his son was playing games or watching videos. Instead, when he entered Stoltz's room, he found his son staring intently at the screen, rewinding something over and over. It was a clip of Russian speed skater Pavel Kuliznikov, who had just set the world record in the 500-meter. He said, "I'm trying to figure out how to get the world record," Dirk Stoltz recalled to USA Today Sports. Stoltz was not yet 12. A decade later, Stoltz not only has a world record, he broke Kuliznikov's previous mark in the 1,000 meter in 2024. He has an almost unbreakable hold on men's speed skating. He has won every 1,000 and 1,500 meter race this World Cup season and 5 of the 9 500 meter races. This after he swept the sprint distances at the World Championships in 2023 and 2024 and won the season title at all 3 distances last season. After putting the mass start back on his international schedule for the first time since Junior Worlds in 2023, Stoltz finished on the podium in 2 of the first 4 World Cups, including a win in Hamar, Norway in December. Stay healthy, and Stoltz could leave the 2026 Milan Cortina Winter Olympics in Italy with 4 gold medals, etching himself into Olympic history. Only Eric Hayden has won more medals at a single Winter Games, famously winning 5 as he swept the speed skating events at the 1980 Games in Lake Placid, New York. Norwegian biathlon great Ole Einar Bjorndalen, 2002, and Soviet speed skater Lydia Skoblikova, 1964, are the only other athletes to win 4 gold at a single Winter Olympics. Quote, sometimes you just sit back and realize what level you're actually on, and it's kind of amazing, Stolz told USA Today Sports. I don't want to say too much about it because you want to try to keep it realistic, so I just focus on what's ahead. But if you look at all the stuff that has been done, it's kind of large. Jordan Stolz's Olympic journey began on a backyard pond. Stolz grew up in Kewaskum, Wisconsin, a northwest exurb of Milwaukee. He and Hannah were captivated watching Apollo Anton Ono at the Vancouver Olympics in 2010 and begged their parents to let them try speed skating. There's a pond on the family's property, so Dirk Stolz cleared off a 30-yard straightaway. It was fun for them to go crashing into the snowbank. Dirk Stolz said. That straightaway soon became a full oval, and Dirk Stolz added lights so the kids could keep skating after it got dark. They were down there all the time, he said. When it was clear that this wasn't a passing fad, Jane and Dirk Stolz looked for a speed skating club for their children, which isn't hard to find in Wisconsin, long the epicenter for the sport in the United States. Hayden, Bonnie Blair, Dan Jansen, Shani Davis, all either grew up in Wisconsin and or trained at what is now the Petite National Ice Center in West Allis, 10 minutes west of downtown Milwaukee. It was at the Petite that Stolz and his sister caught the eye of Bob Fenn, Davis's coach. Bobby comes up to me and Jane and was like, I want to coach your kids. Your kids have such a work ethic. They're such go-getters, Dirk Stolz said. Given their kids' enthusiasm for the sport, the Stolzes decided to go all in. The kids began homeschooling so they could train. Jane and Dirk Stolz alternated their work schedules, Jane on the day shift, Dirk on the night shift, so there would always be someone available to make the 45-minute drive to the Pettit Center. They turned competitions into mini vacations, staying at hotels with water parks. Though Hannah Stolz stopped speed skating as a teenager, Jordan Stolz became even more committed. Quote, the technique aspect and constantly being able to improve and go faster, Stolz said of why he loves the sport. The feeling of hitting a turn at 40 miles per hour, you can't get that feeling doing anything else. After Fenn died unexpectedly in 2017, Davis coached Stolz for about a year. But when Davis left to train China's speed skaters, the then 14-year-old called Bob Corby, who had once coached Jansen and Blair. Corby, a physical therapist, had treated Stolz for a pulled hip flexor 2 years earlier. He said, I don't have a coach. Would you please coach me? Corby said. New coach, new regimen, changes career trajectory. Stolz has always had great technique as well as an ability to instantaneously make corrections. He is obsessive about getting better. When Jane Stolz would record her son's races on her phone, he'd immediately grab it afterwards and search for where he could save a millisecond or two. Until he started training with Corby, however, Stolz had done minimal off-season training, biking mostly. He was only 14 after all. So Corby developed a strength training program for Stolz, one that emphasizes heavy weight training. When I was coaching in the early 80s, we could skate technically better than everyone in the world, but we couldn't beat them, Corby said. It occurred to me we weren't strong enough. The stronger a speed skater is in the thighs and glutes, the more power they can generate and the faster they will go. Hayden was famous for his lower body strength, running or skate walking with the sandbag on his shoulders to build up his leg muscles. The exact amount Stolz lifts in the off-season is something of a trade secret, but suffice to say, even Olympic weightlifters would be impressed. Pair that with pristine technique and you have a speed machine. Quote, I've never seen anybody generate speed like he does, Corby said. He's got extremely strong legs. Then when you add really, really good technique that puts the power into the ice, it's a really good combination. Though COVID wiped out what would have been their first competitive season together, it gave Stolz more time to get stronger. That's when he really took off, Corby said. At the U.S. Championships in January 2021, Stolz won the 500 meter. He was 16. He made his first Olympic team the next year, finishing 13th in the 500 meter and 14th in the 1,000 meter at the Beijing Games. But the experience was invaluable. The 17-year-old was on his own at those games, with neither Corby nor his family able to go because of the strict COVID protocols. He didn't really know how to manage jet lag and didn't bring any of his own food with him. This time around, I think I'm a bit more experienced, Stoltz said. I've gotten stronger, my technique has gotten better, I feel like everything overall has improved, and it's shown in the times. Indeed, speed skating hasn't been the same since. Just how dominant has Stoltz been since Beijing Olympics? 9 months after the 2022 Olympics, Stoltz became the youngest man to capture an individual World Cup race, winning both the 1,000 and 1,500 meter races. A month later, he made the podium in 3 races, the 500, the 1,000, and the 1,500 meter, at the same World Cup for the first time. He won the 3 sprint distances at the 2023 Junior World Championships, and then did the same thing a month later at the Senior Worlds. It made him the youngest world champion, the first man to win 3 golds at a single World Championships. Stoltz duplicated that feat the following year, and then won the World All-Around Speed Skating Championships, a prestigious event that tests skaters at short, middle, and long distances. At 19, he was the youngest skater to win it since Heiden, who was 17 when he won the first of 3 consecutive titles. I remember watching Heiden, Dirk Stoltz said, a note of awe in his voice. This kid is getting compared to one of the greatest Olympic athletes? How did this happen? Why these Olympics could be transformational. Those kinds of comparisons and the expectations they bring could send any athlete sideways. So too the glare of the spotlight. Stoltz is featured heavily in the NBC's promotion for the Olympics. He's alongside Hollywood heartthrob Glenn Powell in one ad, and is showing up in commercials for big-name brands like Honda, Omega, and Ralph Lauren. If he does win multiple golds at the 2026 Winter Games, it could catapult him to a level of superstardom that transcends sports, that rarefied air that Michael Phelps and Simone Biles occupy. Stoltz is not daunted by this. He is extremely confident without being cocky, recognizing that hard work, not luck, is what got him here, and continued hard work is what will be required for continued success. I just try and keep realistic, Stoltz said. We know what we're doing that's working to make me faster. So I think if we continue to do that, it'll continue to progress. I try not to get too far ahead of it or think like, oh, I'm going to skate this time next year. I just kind of try and see where it ends up, Stoltz added. I know if I get stronger in the summer, good chances are you're going to be faster in the winter. It helps that Stoltz has gotten a taste of the limelight that awaits when he's traveled to the Netherlands, where speed skating is a national obsession. It helps even more that in addition to his family and Corby, his support group includes Davis, a two-time Olympic champion whose career was marked by as much by missteps as medals. The two remain close, with Davis describing Stoltz as a little brother, and Davis does not hesitate to shoot Stoltz straight and in a way no one else can. He will never give Stoltz better than a 6 out of 10 after a race, knowing it will encourage the younger skater to stay hungry. He counsels Stoltz to be careful with what he does and what he says and does, knowing all too well that the court of public opinion does not give do-overs. Quote, I didn't have an advisor that knew the information that I needed, and I was always kind of learning things the hardest way possible, Davis said. I wish I had had somebody like that, but it makes me want to advise and help just for that very reason alone. Hindsight's 20/20, but if I could have done things a little bit better, maybe I would have had slightly better results, said Davis, who won a gold and a silver in both the 2006 and 2010 Olympics. I'm just happy to be in the position I'm in, to give back from what I've experienced and what I worked for, Davis added. I can see him picking up where I left off and even pushing the bar further. That is what's most astounding, or if you're Stoltz's competitors, most terrifying. At 21, Stoltz's career is just beginning. Even if he'd win 4 gold medals in Italy, he can and almost certainly will get better. You kind of get addicted to improving the times and trying to go faster, Stoltz said. It's something you have to learn or grow into, but I really like it. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 29 minutes after the hour. On page 2 of this issue of the USA Today for today, the headline reads, Judge Extends Protections for Haitian Migrants by Bethany Bruner. A federal judge issued a last-minute reprieve on February 2nd, blocking President Donald Trump's attempt to end temporary protected status, or TPS, for hundreds of thousands of Haitian immigrants in the United States. The status, which allows about 350,000 Haitians to legally live and work in the United States, has been set to expire on February 3rd. It includes about 30,000 Haitians in central Ohio and another 15,000 in Springfield. The U.S. District Court Judge for the District of Columbia, Anna Reyes, issued a ruling postponing the effective date of the Trump administration's cancellation of TPS for Haitians. The extension is a result of a case filed in July in that court. The TPS status for Haitian immigrants previously was extended by a federal court from September 3rd expiration date to February 3rd. The status can be granted to immigrants from countries where there is ongoing armed conflict, environmental disaster, epidemics, or other extraordinary and temporary conditions. Reyes's ruling says the termination of TPS is null, void, and of no legal effect, and will not impact the work authorization of Haitian immigrants. Those under TPS status will also be protected from detention or deportation for the length of the judicial stay. Ohio's Haitian population, particularly in Springfield, drew national attention during the 2024 presidential campaign, when President Donald Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance spread false claims that immigrants from Haiti who lived there were eating pets. The expiration of TPS protection for Haitian immigrants had led to concerns about surges in immigration enforcement operations in Springfield and the surrounding areas. Ohio Immigrant Alliance's Executive Director Lynn Tremont praised the court decision, but said temporary measures don't solve the bigger problem. This 11th hour reprieve is, of course, welcome, but people can't live their lives like this, pegging their family's future to a court case, Tremont said. Haitian Ohioans have literally saved their own lives and their kids' lives multiple times. They did the hard part. The least this country can do is honor their strength and contributions by giving them a permanent home. That is what many in Ohio are advocating for, as was made clear in Springfield today. On January 29th, Reyes filed an entry in the case expressing frustration in not having some information before being forced to make a decision. Through delay with both parties at varying degrees of fault, the court will not have the benefit of any discovery prior to the entry of its decision, Reyes wrote. The government's concern seems to be the court's speed. The court notes its concern is the parties' lack of it. In the future, the court will move slower if the parties move faster. Reyes also took issue with the Trump administration's filing of a 9-page motion that was no longer relevant to the case. The government has only itself to blame for wasting time drafting a motion that was moot from the jump, Reyes wrote. The next headline is Clintons Agree to Depositions About Epstein. Appearances Before House Avert Showdown by Bart Jansen. And there's a picture of Bill and Hillary Clinton attending the inauguration of Donald Trump on January 20th, 2025 in Washington, D.C. Dateline is Washington. Former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton have agreed to give depositions to a House committee about the accused late sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein, diffusing a potential showdown between the legislative and executive branches. The House Oversight and Government Reform Committee issued subpoenas in August 2025 and scheduled appearances for January, but the Clintons defied them at that time. Bill Clinton's Deputy Chief of Staff, Angel Urena, said on social media February 2nd that the former president and the former Secretary of State will be there. They look forward to setting a precedent that applies to everyone. The announcement came as the House Rules Committee was considering resolutions to hold the Clintons in criminal contempt. If approved by the House and prosecuted by the Department of Justice, the charges could have potentially led to prison terms for the Clintons. The letter to lawmakers from Clinton lawyers, which USA Today has reviewed, said the former president and Secretary of State accepted the terms that the Oversight Chairman, Representative James Comer, a Republican from Kentucky, had offered, and will appear for depositions on mutually agreeable dates. The letter also asked the committee to confirm that the House will not move forward with contempt proceedings. Comer said that he would have to study their proposal because the Clintons had resisted testifying until then. His staff had not received the offer in the minutes before he began testifying about the contempt resolutions. He argued that it would set a bad precedent to allow witnesses to avoid testifying until it was apparent that a majority of lawmakers would approve contempt proceedings. "We're going to have to look at this and review this," Comer said. House Speaker Mike Johnson, a Republican from Louisiana, welcomed the news, but did not say whether the chamber would drop its planned contempt vote. "That's a good development," he said. "We expect everyone to comply with the Congress's subpoenas." The DOJ is in the midst of releasing millions of pages of documents from its criminal investigations. Despite a new law requiring the release of the documents, millions more pages remain confidential while hundreds of department lawyers scour them to prevent the release of names of people who accuse Epstein of abuse. Bill Clinton is among the political and business leader who socialized with Epstein and showed up in the documents. Clinton appeared in pictures in a handwritten note in a book Epstein's associate Ghislaine Maxwell assembled for Epstein's 50th birthday. Yet Clinton hasn't been accused of wrongdoing. The Clintons have said they have been out of office for more than a decade and had nothing to do with Epstein for more than 20 years. Comer argued that their testimony remains critical to understanding Epstein's alleged sex trafficking network and how he curried favor with powerful figures to evade scrutiny. Criminal contempt is a misdemeanor carrying a $100,000 fine and up to a year in prison. Steve Bannon, a former Trump political advisor, and Peter Navarro, a Trump trade advisor, each were convicted of contempt for defying subpoenas about the Capitol attack on January 6, 2021, and sentenced to 4 months in prison. Navarro was fined $9,500, and Bannon was fined $6,500. But the DOJ could decide against prosecution in such cases. The House voted to hold Trump aides from his first term in contempt, including Deputy Chief of Staff Don Scavino, former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, former Attorney General Bill Barr, and former Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross, but none were prosecuted. In a scathing letter January 13th, Bill and Hillary Clinton had accused Comer of trying to embarrass them, calling the subpoenas invalid and legally unenforceable. "We are confident that any reasonable person in or out of Congress will see, based on everything we release, that what you are doing is trying to punish those who you see as your enemies and to protect those who you think are your friends," the Clintons wrote. After Bill Clinton skipped a hearing on January 13th and Hillary Clinton skipped one on January 14th, the committee moved to hold him in contempt. Bill Clinton's staffer, Urena, said the former president offered on January 30th to meet with Comer and the top Democrat on the committee, Representative Robert Garcia of California, at his New York office. The Clintons agreed to answer questions about travel with Epstein, his awareness of criminal activities, and efforts by Epstein to gain leverage. Comer rejected the offer. "The Clintons do not get to dictate the terms of lawful subpoenas," Comer said on social media. The next headline reads, "Guthrie thanks fans for praying for her missing mother." Today, co-anchor's mom, 84, is without her meds, by Melina Khan, Brendan Morrow, and Taiwan Mormon. NBC's morning co-anchor Savannah Guthrie thanked fans February 3rd for praying for her mother's safe return as authorities investigate her possible kidnapping. Nancy Guthrie, 84, was reported missing from her home outside Tucson, Arizona on February 1st, Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos said. Authorities said they were treating Nancy Guthrie's disappearance as a crime. She has limited mobility and is without the daily medication she needs, they said. Quote, "At this point, investigators believe she was taken from the home against her will, possibly taken in the middle of the night," Nanos said. Taken against her will includes possible kidnapping or abduction. Nanos said the FBI has offered to help, and the U.S. Border Patrol has assisted with dogs. He added that the department is looking at home security camera footage and license plate readers to help find out what happened to the elder Guthrie. In a statement on Instagram February 2nd, Savannah Guthrie, 54, who was absent from the Today Show, expressed her gratitude the next day for lifting your prayers with ours for our beloved mom, our dearest Nancy. Shinell Jones filled in for Savannah Guthrie on Today on February 3rd, and she described Nancy Guthrie on the show as a beloved part of our Today family. In an emotional conversation on the show, Today co-anchor Jenna Bush Hager said the case is personal for everyone at the NBC show who have gotten to know Nancy Guthrie. We're just thinking of her and her family today, Hager said. According to a missing persons flyer, Nancy Guthrie is 5'5" and about 150 pounds with brown hair and blue eyes. Anyone with information should contact the Pima County Sheriff's Office at 520-351-4900. Guthrie is of great sound mind, and the disappearance is not dementia-related, Nanos said. Nancy Guthrie's children left her off around 9:45 p.m. January 31st, Nanos said. The next morning, a member of Guthrie's church called her family to let them know that Guthrie was not at the service. The family went to the house. They spent some time looking for her themselves before they called us, so I'm guessing maybe they got there around 11 a.m., Nanos said. Nanos said the sheriff's office received a 911 call about noon, February 1st, reporting Nancy Guthrie missing from her home outside Tucson. Nanos said officials saw concerning things in the home, which was being treated as a crime scene. We believe now, after we process that crime scene, that we do, in fact, have a crime scene, that we do, in fact, have a crime, and we're asking the community's help, he said. We don't need another bad, tragic ending. We need some help. Authorities described the circumstances on the scene as suspicious, but declined to share further details. The Los Angeles Times reported, citing law enforcement sources, that police found blood inside Nancy Guthrie's home. Nanos spoke with NBC Nightly News host Tom Llamas on February 2nd. We believe she was taken out of the home against her will, and that's how this investigation is moving, said Nanos, who later pleaded, just call us, just let her go. The family would tell you there's no questions asked here. If she's alive right now, her meds are vital. I can't stress that enough. In her statement on Instagram, Savannah Guthrie asked fans to pray for her mom's safe return. We believe in prayer. We believe in voices raised in unison in love and hope. We believe in goodness. We believe in humanity. Above all, we believe in Him. She wrote, we need you. Accompanied by a photo of text reading, please pray, she wrote, bring her home. Celebrities including Olivia Culpo, Katie Couric, Lindsey Vonn, Erin Andrews, and Amy Schumer shared their well wishes in the comments. The next headline reads, Preddy's death ruled a homicide. Medical examiner cites gunshot wounds, by Michael Loria. The killing of 37-year-old intensive care unit nurse in Minneapolis that has sparked protests nationwide was a homicide, according to a medical examiner's report. Alex Preddy was shot by Department of Homeland Security agents sent to Minnesota as part of President Donald Trump's crackdown on immigration enforcement in the state. His killing has rocked the country. The White House has moved to recast its approach to fulfilling Trump's promise of mass deportations. Opponents around the country have taken to the streets to say Preddy's killing shows the president's crackdown has gone too far. The medical examiner for Hennepin County determined that Preddy's killing on January 4th was a homicide caused by multiple gunshot wounds. According to the report, which was made public February 2nd, Preddy's wounds occurred when he was shot by law enforcement officers. A coroner's ruling of homicide indicates someone's death was caused by another person. It does not necessarily mean murder. A homicide ruling typically triggers an investigation into the death that will aim to determine whether the killing was justified. Justice Department Assistant Attorney General Todd Blanche announced January 30th that the agency had opened a civil rights investigation into Preddy's killing. A spokesperson for the Department of Homeland Security told USA Today the incident is being investigated by the FBI with support from Homeland Security Investigations. Customs and Border Protection is conducting its own investigation. Homeland Security officials have not identified the agents involved in the shooting, but in a report obtained by USA Today, the agency said 2 agents fired guns in the encounter with Preddy. The agents were placed on leave. Investigative news outlet ProPublica identified the pair as Border Patrol agent Jesus Ochoa and Customs Border Protection Officer Raymond Gutierrez. USA Today has reached out to Preddy's family for comment. The Trump administration has moved to change tactics in Minnesota in response to backlash over Preddy's killing, especially after top officials' initial characterization of the shooting was contradicted by bystander videos. On February 2nd, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem announced agency officers would begin wearing body cameras. Trump replaced his top official on the ground in the state with border czar Tom Homan, and Congress is debating a 2-week extension of DHS funding to allow time for negotiations over steps such as implementing body-worn cameras. What else does the report say? According to the medical examiner's office report, Preddy was shot less than 2 miles from where he lived, south of downtown Minneapolis. The report says he was pronounced dead in the emergency room at Hennepin County Medical Center. He would have turned 38 on March 1st. Preddy stood 5 foot 10 inches tall and weighed 147 pounds, according to the report. The public document does not say whether he had any scars or other identifying marks. USA Today is not publishing the name of the funeral home for the sake of the family's privacy. The killing of Renee Good also was ruled a homicide. Preddy's killing by immigration agents came just weeks after the shooting by Immigration and Customs Enforcement agent Jonathan Ross of 37-year-old Renee Good. A Hennepin County medical examiner's report also lists Good's manner of death as homicide, resulting from multiple gunshot wounds. The report notes the deceased was shot by a law enforcement officer. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 46 minutes past the hour. The next headline on this page of the USA Today reads, Review sought in Catholic school case. DOJ brief to High Court uninvited in CO appeal. By Maureen Grope. Washington is the dateline. The Trump administration has asked the Supreme Court to let Catholic preschools in Colorado receive public money even if they don't admit students from LGBTQ+ families. The Justice Department, which under President Donald Trump has taken a hard line against LGBTQ+ rights, took the unusual steps of weighing in on the case without being asked by the justices. The department argues that Catholic preschools participating in the state's tuition-free preschool program should be able to serve only families who support the church's teachings on sexuality and gender, because the state allows preschools to have admissions preferences for non-religious reasons. Schools, for example, can prioritize enrolling low-income children and those who need specialized learning plans. The Denver-based 10th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals rejected that comparison. Unlike refusing to admit a student whose parents are gay, matching students with disabilities and those who come from poor families with schools that can best suit their needs isn't discrimination, a unanimous 3-judge panel ruled last year. It is farcical to say that non-disabled children are being discriminated against by being denied special education designed for disabled students, or that high-income students are being discriminated against by preschools participating in Head Start, Judge Richard Federico wrote for the panel. The Archdiocese of Denver, 2 Catholic parishes, and 2 parents of preschool-age children have asked the Supreme Court to review that decision. Our preschools exist to help parents who want an education rooted in the Catholic faith for their children, Scott Elmer, Chief Mission Officer for the Archdiocese of Denver, said in a statement. All we ask is for the ability to offer families who choose a Catholic education the same access to free preschool services that's available at thousands of other preschools across Colorado. Without the state subsidies, the Church said, enrollment in its schools has swiftly declined, and parents who want to keep their children in those schools must pay thousands of dollars to do so. The Archdiocese is represented by the Becket Fund for Religious Liberty, a group that has brought multiple successful Supreme Court appeals on religious issues. Those include the court's 2025 decision that schools must allow parents to remove their elementary school children from class when storybooks with LGBTQ+ characters are being used. Justice Department's brief was uninvited. Though it's not unusual for the Supreme Court to ask the Justice Department for its views on a case, it is rare for the department to offer them unsolicited. Solicitor General John Sauer said the decision to file the uninvited brief shows how strongly the department's lawyers disagree with the Tenth Circuit's ruling and how important it is for Supreme Court to intervene. The United States has a substantial interest in the preservation of the free exercise of religion, Sauer wrote in the filing. It also has a substantial interest in the enforcement of rules prohibiting discrimination by government funding recipients. Colorado has until March 2nd to respond to the church's appeal. A spokesman for the Colorado Attorney General's office declined to comment on the Justice Department's filing. Colorado preschool program open to public, private schools. Colorado's preschool program, created to provide free early education throughout the state, is open to both public and private schools. Participating schools must meet set criteria for teacher qualifications, classroom size, and other standards. Schools must also follow non-discrimination rules, which include providing eligible children an equal opportunity to enroll and receive preschool services regardless of race, ethnicity, religious affiliation, sexual orientation, gender identity, lack of housing, income level, or disability, as such characteristics and circumstances apply to the child or the child's family. The Archdiocese of Denver, which oversees 36 preschools, asks its school not to admit a student if the family disagrees with the Catholic Church's teaching on biological sex and marriage. In a series of rulings since 2017, justices have said that when a state offers subsidies for private education, it cannot categorically block religious institutions from participating. The appeals court said those rulings don't apply to Colorado's preschool program because faith-based schools were actively encouraged to participate and can even teach religion. Also, the non-discrimination policy does not target religious practices, the court said. The next headline on the page reads, Trump says Republicans should nationalize elections. He urges takeover as fraud claims continue, by Joey Garrison. Dateline is Washington. President Donald Trump said Republicans should nationalize the voting process as he continues to level unfounded claims of voter fraud in the 2020 presidential election more than 5 years after losing to Joe Biden. Trump called for Republicans at the federal level to seize control of elections from states during an appearance on the podcast of Don Bongino, who returned to his show February 2nd after resigning in January as FBI director in the Trump administration. The Republicans should say, we want to take over. We should take over the voting in at least 15 places, Trump said. The Republicans ought to nationalize the voting. We have states that are so crooked. The Constitution gives authority to states, not the federal government, to set the times, places, and manner of holding federal elections, but it empowers Congress to make or alter rules. Trump's comments came after the FBI on January 28th executed a warrant at a Fulton County election center as part of a probe related to the 2020 presidential election. Georgia is among the states won by Biden that Trump has falsely said were stolen from him. Quote, we have states that I won that Joe didn't win. Now you're going to see something in Georgia where they were able to get the court order the ballots. You're going to see some interesting things come out. Trump spoke directly to some of the FBI agents who executed the search a day after it was conducted, the New York Times reported, citing 3 people with knowledge of the discussions. Trump was connected by phone with the FBI agents by Tulsi Gabbard, Director of National Intelligence, as she visited the office, the Times reported. Trump's call for Republicans to federalize elections came as he accused Democrats of bringing migrants into the United States to illegally vote, a frequent attack among Trump and his supporters that is not backed by evidence. Only U.S. citizens are allowed to vote in federal and state elections. Those people were brought to our country to vote, and they vote illegally, Trump said. It's amazing that the Republicans aren't tougher about it. The next headline reads, Iranian leader warns of regional conflict. Trump hopes for deal amid talks, rhetoric, by Catherine Palmer. Iran's supreme leader warned a regional conflict could unfold if the United States attacks his country as frantic diplomatic talks in the region sought to lower the temperature between Tehran and Washington. President Donald Trump has been ratcheting up his threats against Middle Eastern nation over the past several weeks, floating military action in response to Iran's violent crackdown on protesters in January. He has stopped short of intervening, but has since demanded that Iran make nuclear concessions and deployed an increased U.S. military presence near the Strait of Hormuz and the Persian Gulf. Quote, "We are not the initiators and do not want to attack any country, but the Iranian nation will strike a strong blow against anyone who attacks and harasses them," Ayatollah Ali Khamenei said February 1st, according to state-run media. The Iranian supreme leader was quoted as saying that if the United States starts a war, this time it will be a regional war. Tensions have escalated between the two nations as Trump and Iranian leaders trade barbs, prompting diplomatic talks in the region involving Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and other regional and Persian Gulf nations. Trump appeared to pivot from threatening U.S. military might over Iran's crackdown on anti-government protesters in late January, after he said Tehran assured him that it would halt executions of protesters. The Human Rights Activists News Agency, an organization that tracks the Iranian protest death toll, says it has verified more than 6,800 deaths since the unrest began in December. Then, on January 28th, Trump unleashed new threats, warning in a social media post that Iran would face an armada of U.S. warships if it doesn't make a deal on nuclear weapons. The U.S. Navy has 6 destroyers, 1 aircraft carrier, and 3 littoral combat ships in the region, according to Reuters. You're listening to a reading of articles and features from the USA Today for today, Wednesday, February 4th, 2026, on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We'll return for more readings after this short break. Your reader for this hour has been David Frothingham.
You're listening to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. As of this year, our agency has broadcast more than 300,000 hours of radio readings. Volunteer radio readers read newspapers, magazines, and books to area people who are blind or have a print disability, who are provided reading radios. Radio Reading's broadcast signal is provided at no charge by WNED. Radio Reading broadcasts from studios at 1199 Harlem Road in suburban Buffalo. Please let others know about Radio Reading. It's your service. For more information on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, call 716-821-5555.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's issue of the USA Today. Your reader for this hour is Claudia. Sports. Real-life issues. We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's issue of the USA Today. Your reader for this hour is Claudia. Sports. Real-life issues. Like everyday Americans, U.S. Olympians grapple with mental health. What's being done for them? When it comes to mental health, the math is sobering as the 2026 Winter Olympics approach. About half of the U.S. Olympians and U.S. Paralympians set to compete at the Milano Cortina Games will not be at their best mentally, according to Jonathan Finoff, Chief Medical Officer of the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee, USOPC. Going into the Games, we know that 50% of Olympic athletes and 60% of Paralympic athletes are going to report some symptoms of mental health concern. Finoff said in October at the Team USA Media Summit in New York. So is the USOPC prepared to support those athletes? The U.S. Olympic team is comprised of 232 athletes, and the final U.S. Paralympic team will be announced March 2nd. Finoff said the USOPC has built an incredibly robust program. He noted the hiring of 16 duly certified mental health and mental performance providers, virtual consultation services with more than 500 psychological services professionals, and several ways to assess athletes for mental health needs. But at times, the USOPC's mental health program has drawn more scrutiny than praise. The Borders Commission, created by the USOPC in 2018, concluded in a 2019 report that mental health care can and must be expanded. And Michael Phelps, the legendary swimmer who retired in 2016 as the most decorated Olympian in history, has talked openly about his own mental health struggles and repeatedly criticized the USOPC. I can honestly say, looking back on my career, I don't think anybody really cared to help us, Phelps said in The Weight of Gold, a documentary released in 2020 about mental health challenges faced by Olympic athletes. Simone Biles' impact. At the 2021 Olympics in Tokyo, what happened out of competition was no less important than what happened during competition. In a shocking moment, Simone Biles withdrew from the final individual all-around women's gymnastics competition. The American superstar later explained she suffered from the twisties, a mental block that leaves a gymnast unable to safely complete twisting skills. Biles opened up and sparked a conversation about mental health. Tennis star Naomi Osaka and sprinter Noah Lyles also opened up as the talk about mental health issues continued. In time, the USOPC took action. The USOPC said that between the Tokyo Olympics in 2021 and the Paris Olympics in 2024, it increased the number of licensed psychologists on its staff to 15 from 6. When Biles walked off the floor in the middle of the gymnastics team final at the Tokyo Games, it created a powerful paradigm shift throughout the sports world and beyond, the USOPC stated in its 2021 Impact Report. In 2021, the USOPC announced a $1.5 million donation from the Reichsel Family Foundation for Mental Health Support. At the Team USA Today Media Summit in October, the USOPC again mentioned donations received for mental health services. We're really focused on it, Finoff said, and we're lucky this has been something that the leadership and frankly the public and all of our partners have really focused on, is the health and mental well-being of Team USA athletes. A piece of aimlessness. Nick Goper, an American freestyle skier who is preparing for the Milano Cortina Games and his third Winter Olympics, has struggled with mental health issues. Thankfully, the USOPC has amazing resources for us now in terms of the mental health stuff, which has gotten way better over the last 10 years, Goper said. With Biles, Osaka, and Lyles watching their Winter Olympic counterparts, Goper carries the torch for athletes trying to end the stigma around mental health issues. Since his Olympic career began, Goper has said he has been to rehab for substance abuse and experienced depression, panic attacks, and suicidal thoughts. I'd say over the last 10 years I've experienced some highs and lows, Goper said in October at the Team USA Media Summit. Specifically, after the 2014 Games and the 2018 Games, I kind of found myself in a place of aimlessness and sort of lost, like what's my purpose, what am I doing, and these kind of existential questions when you are living in this tiny vacuum after you do the coolest thing you'll ever going to do in your life. So I think it's important to take care of your mental health, or else you'll find yourself in mental health. From good to great. The USOPC's corporate partners, which included Coca-Cola, Samsung, and Visa, are not forking over tens of millions of dollars to have the most well-adjusted and mentally sound athletes in the world. Medal count is important. But the USOPC has experienced a shift over the last 5 years, providing services for mental performance and mental health, said Jessica Bartley, Senior Director of Psychological Services for the USOPC. Bartley said she was hired about 5 years ago, and we were really focused on mental performance. We also really needed to be aware of mental health. And there was a lot of shifting during that time. All of the USOPC's providers are licensed in mental health and certified in mental performance. Bartley said she also said that there were 1,200 mental health sessions with Team USA athletes during the 2024 Olympics in Paris. We actually coded every single session in Paris. The majority of our sessions were actually mental performance, she said. We're often really pushing athletes to go from good to great, and there was a lot of life issues that came up. We had people that were going through real life issues, and we've had competitions where somebody actually experienced a miscarriage or they lost someone. And so we are also all trained in life issues as well. Vaughn plans to ski with torn ACL. Olympic determination proves she's one of one. Lindsey Vonn has never done anything halfway. That's not about to change now. Vonn said Tuesday, February 3rd, that she plans to ski at the Winter Olympics in Milano Cortina, despite a torn ACL and meniscus damage in her left knee. It's not the scenario she imagined or hoped for, not in a season where she has redefined what is possible when you live boldly. But if the choice is to wallow or pick herself up again, that's not really a choice at all. As many times as I've crashed, I've gotten back up. As many times as I failed, I've won, Vonn said. I'm not letting this slip through my fingers. I'm going to do it. End of story. She added, so I'm not letting myself go down that path. I'm not crying. My head is high. I'm standing tall, and I'm going to do my best. And whatever the result is, that's what it is. But never say I didn't try. Vonn's belief in herself has always been her greatest strength. She's recovered from injuries that would have been the end for almost everyone else, multiple times. She has heard the naysayers and kept going anyway multiple times, and time again her faith in herself has been rewarded. So who's to tell her now will be any different? I'm still here. I think I'm still able to fight. I think I'm still able to try, and I will try as long as I have the ability to, Vonn said. Vonn knows her chances in Milano Cortina aren't what they would have been about a week ago. She has dominated the downhill races this season, winning 2 and being on the podium in the other 3, and would have been favored to win her second Olympic gold. Now she will be hurtling herself down a snow-covered mountain at 70 miles an hour or more on a busted knee. But this season, this latest comeback, has always been about more than her results. It's about ending her career on her terms and showing people that the only limitations you have are the ones you have in your own mind. Vonn was forced to retire in 2019 because of the physical toll of the many injuries she suffered during her illustrious career. When she had a partial replacement of her right knee in April 2024, it was so she could live a pain-free life. As she recovered, though, she felt better than she had in years and wondered if she could win and could race again. She returned to the World Cup circuit in December of 2024 and had mixed results last season, though she ended the year with a silver medal in the Super G at the World Cup Finals in Sun Valley, Idaho. With a full off-season to train and fine-tune her equipment, however, Vonn has been nothing short of amazing. She silenced all the critics who said she couldn't do this at 41 and with a partial knee replacement. She's inspired people who would have had to take chances but weren't sure if they should or could. She's written a different ending to her career, one in which she is able to dictate the terms. She's proved herself to be, once again, one of one, and she is not about to let a ravaged knee change any of that, because the pain of regret will always be worse for Vonn than any physical pain. I will not go home regretting not trying, she said emphatically. I will do everything in my power to be in that starting gate. Betting against Lindsey Vonn has always been a foolish gamble. This time it's no different. Brady to May, no shortcuts. Drake May is looking to join Tom Brady as the only quarterbacks to lead the New England Patriots to a Super Bowl victory. As May prepares to do that, some of the guidance the legend has given over his career has been rattling around in his brain. May was asked at Super Bowl opening night about the best advice he had received from Brady. I've met Tom a few times and one of the best things he said is there's no shortcuts to it. May told reporters there's no shortcuts to putting in the work. That's proof in the pudding. Knowing that the shortcuts that people can try to take, it's not worth it, he added. Get the most out of what you put into it. He's been great at that, and he's obviously showed that throughout his career. Brady earned a reputation as one of the NFL's hardest workers during his 23-year career. He won a player record 7 Super Bowls across his 23-year seasons and finished his career as the NFL's all-time leader in passing yards, 89,214, and passing touchdowns, 649. May is a long way away from matching Brady, but he showed immense improvement during his second NFL season. He completed 72% of his passes during the regular season for 4,394 yards, 31 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions, while adding 450 yards and 4 TDs on the ground to play himself into the NFL MVP race for the 2025 season. May's much improved second season will culminate with him becoming the second youngest quarterback to start a Super Bowl behind only Dan Marino. He will also have a chance to match Brady's feat of earning his first Super Bowl ring in his second NFL campaign. Even so, May isn't entertaining any of the Brady comparisons he has drawn. I appreciate his greatness, he said, what he did for my team that I play for now, what he did for football, what he's done for my position that I play. Just respect for how he played the game, how he wanted to win so bad, how he carried his teammates, how he led his teammates, how he approached the sport. I want to pay respect to him, but not try to be him, and just try to be myself. Brady rooting for good strategy in SB. If you thought former NFL quarterback Tom Brady, who won 6 Super Bowls with the New England Patriots, would root for his former team in Super Bowl 60, you'd be wrong. But Brady also isn't rooting against his former team by pulling for the Seattle Seahawks. I don't have a dog in the fight in this one, the Fox Sports NFL analyst said in the latest episode of his Let's Go podcast. May the best team win. Brady went on to compliment the work that the Patriots head coach Mike Vrabel has done in New England, righting the ship and helping lead the team to another Super Bowl appearance after a couple of 4-13 seasons. As far as rooting interests go, the 7-time Super Bowl champion is just rooting for a good game. I want to see good plays, good throws, good strategy, good decisions, Brady said. The reality may be that Brady actually has 2 dogs in Super Bowl 60's 2-dog fight. The Patriots are 1 dog. The former NFL quarterback spent 20 years of his career in New England, winning 6 Super Bowls, 4 Super Bowl MVP awards, and 3 NFL MVP awards during his time there. The Patriots memorialized Brady's legacy with the team in the form of a statue of the quarterback standing 17 feet tall in front of Gillette Stadium. The other dog is Clint Kubiak, the Seahawks offensive coordinator. On Sunday, February 1st, multiple reports indicated the Las Vegas Raiders, a team in which Brady holds a minority ownership stake, were closing on hiring Kubiak as their next head coach. The hiring cannot become official until after the Seahawks season is over, after Super Bowl 60, but both sides anticipate they'll close the deal shortly thereafter. Time will tell which of Brady's 2 dogs will come out on top and whether they'll put on the show he's hoping for. Figure skater can use Minions-inspired music. The Minions will be at the 2026 Winter Olympics. Spanish figure skater Tomas Laurent Guarino Sabate said he will be able to use his short program, inspired by the Minions, the yellow lovable creatures from the Despicable Me movie franchise, after dealing with licensing issues that put it at risk. The 6-time reigning Spanish champion has been using the crowd-loving routine for the 2025-26 season with a costume that resembles the Minions' uniform. However, Sabate announced on Instagram on Monday, February 2nd, that despite completing the musical procedures with the International Skating Union, he was informed just days before the Olympics began he was not allowed to perform it due to copyright issues. Finding this out last Friday, so close to the most important competition of my life, was incredibly disappointing, he wrote. To my fans, I wish I had better news, but I am profoundly grateful for your support this season. The news drew backlash from the figure skating world, as Sabate's program was expected to be a hit for the Winter Olympic audiences. It also brought up a long-standing issue in the sport when it comes to music and getting it cleared of copyrights. Luckily, Sabate's problems didn't last long. He announced on Tuesday that Universal Studios granted the rights of the music from the Minions movie. Huge thank you to everyone who reposted, shared, and supported. Because of you, Universal Studios reconsidered and officially granted the rights for this one special occasion, Sabate said on Instagram. He added there are 2 other elements of the music that need to be cleared, but he is so close to accomplishing it. I'm so happy to see that the Minions hitting Olympic ice is becoming real again. I'll keep you posted, Sabate said. Sabate will be competing in his first Winter Olympics, and he is on track to perform the Minions routine during the men's short program on February 10th. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 15 minutes after the hour. Patriots owner doesn't make Hall cut. Like Bill Belichick, Robert Kraft won't be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame this year. The New England Patriots owner did not receive the necessary minimum 40 of 50 possible votes to be selected to the 2026 class, ESPN reported Tuesday, February 3rd. Kraft had been the contributor finalist, while Belichick had been on the coaching finalist. Anywhere from 1 to 3 candidates will be selected among a pool of 5 coach, contributor, and senior player finalists. Roger Craig, Ken Anderson, and L.C. Greenwood are the senior finalists. Meanwhile, 3 to 5 of the 15 modern-era finalists, which include Drew Brees and Larry Fitzgerald, among others, are to be selected. Belichick was revealed last week to have not made the cut, with Kraft coming out in support of his former coach. Whatever perceptions may exist about any personal differences between Bill and me, I strongly believe Bill Belichick's record and body of work speak for themselves, Kraft said in a statement. Kraft, 84, purchased the Patriots in 1994, saving the organization from potential relocation and steering it on to one of the most successful runs in league history. After Belichick's hire in January of 2000, the franchise went on to win 6 Super Bowls, tying it with the Pittsburgh Steelers for the most. The Hall of Fame's 2026 class will be unveiled Thursday night at the NFL Honors Ceremony in San Francisco. Super Bowl 60 preview on newsstands. Our 64-page special edition has matchup analysis and predictions and is packed with feature stories and information about the New England Patriots and Seattle Seahawks to get you ready for the February 8th game in Santa Clara, California. Who are the key players to watch? Who could turn the matchup? Plus, how Mike Vrabel turned around New England and how Seattle built its formidable defense. We survey the team's Super Bowl histories, the betting and ticket buying landscapes, and how high-tech Levi Stadium is preparing to host a second Super Bowl. Plus, what can you do in the Bay Area while you're there? We also look behind the natural on-air chemistry between broadcasters Mike Trico and Chris Collinsworth on NBC. We have our end-of-season awards, review the NFL playoffs so far, and offer our favorite Super Bowl memories. Plus a look at 37 years of our ad meter Super Bowl commercial winners. The edition is also available at onlinestore.usatoday.com. NFL's Diversity Lip Service, a Groundhog Day sequel. Well, it sure felt like a quasi-holiday on February 2nd when Roger Goodell kicked off Super Bowl 60 week with his annual State of the NFL press conference. You know the event, Groundhog Day, how fitting. The NFL commissioner saw his shadow again when it came to the lack of diversity with the latest hiring cycle for head coaches. With 10 openings to be filled, the most since the 11 in 2000, just one person of color was hired. Black coaches were shut out again for the 5th time since 2023. Goodell might feel like he's stuck in a movie with Bill Murray because the questions and criticism about the NFL's head coaching hires keep coming back year after year. Last year, just one black head coach was hired among 7 vacancies when Aaron Glenn landed the New York Jets job. This time, the Tennessee Titans hire of Robert Saleh, A Lebanese American was the only person of color to land a top job. Never mind all that Goodell has done from his perch to promote more diverse results, including programs, initiatives, staunch support for the Rooney Rule, and sermons from the pulpit. The past 2 cycles, black coaches are 1 for 17 in landing the top jobs in a league where roughly 70% of the players are black. If he's not in a movie, you could suspect the commissioner is resigned to the notion that whatever he tries, it won't work. You know me too well to say I'm resigned to doing something where I think we need to continue to make progress, Goodell said the first time the topic was broached during his 45-minute session at the San Jose Convention Center. I believe that. I believe diversity is good for us. We still have work to do, he added. There's got to be more steps. So we're reevaluating everything we're doing, including our accelerator program, to meet the challenges of today and tomorrow rather than yesterday. So we need to be looking at that to say, okay, why did we have the results this year? Now, haven't we heard this before? NFL owners keep hiring coaches who look like them. Goodell keeps taking the heat. No, the commissioner doesn't make the hires. That's on the individual teams and team owners. Yet Goodell's big money gig comes with the distinct feature of taking the heat on this matter for NFL owners. Like it or not, he's the face of the league's response, even though the onus is always on the owners. In any event, Goodell is at least consistent with his messaging, even amid a sticky political climate where the Trump administration has waged war on diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI efforts, that maintains they'll keep trying because there's more work to do. Still, it may be more than a coincidence that in the first hiring cycle since the NFL punted or scrapped its accelerator program, which was designed to improve prospects for minority coaches and front office candidates, the key features including exposure to team owners and workshop sessions, 0 black head coaches were hired. Why did the NFL scrap or punt the accelerator program? It reeked of a political dance. Now that the results are in, Goodell insists that there was no correlation between the results of 0 black coaching hires and 0 accelerator programs since May. No, Goodell said, but I think long-term it's something that we want to continue and figure out how do we use that to make sure that people understand that the level of talent is out there, the extraordinary talent is out there, and how to give them the opportunities to continue their careers. The league has stated that it intends to eventually bring back the accelerator in a reimagined form, yet I suspect that it will be a challenge to avoid anti-DEI pushback if the program isn't expanded beyond minorities and women. We'll see. Brian Flores and Eric Bieniemy personify NFL's lingering diversity issues. In the meantime, other indicators underscore the challenge for advancing black coaches to the top posts. When Eric Bieniemy returned to the Kansas City Chiefs last month, he snapped a string that saw more than 30 offensive coordinator jobs filled by white candidates. Most head coaching jobs are filled by offensive coordinators, although Bieniemy was a notable exception to that pattern despite his Super Bowl success with the Chiefs. It's also worth noting that neither of the head coaches for the Seattle Seahawks and New England Patriots meeting in the Super Bowl 60, Mike McDonald and Mike Vrabel, were hot offensive coordinators. They both have defensive backgrounds. Speaking of such, arguably the most attractive black head coaching candidate during the most recent cycle came from the defensive side too, but Brian Flores, the Minnesota Vikings defensive coordinator, was passed over again. Flores seemingly has 3 strikes against him. 1, he's black. 2, he has a defensive background. And 3, he's suing the NFL on the grounds of systemic racism, alleging that 3 teams, the Houston Texans, Denver Broncos, and New York Giants, conducted sham interviews with him to comply with the Rooney Rule as he pursued a job after being fired by the Miami Dolphins. It's not hard to imagine that Flores' pending legal action might have been a factor in his being passed over despite landing interviews with the Baltimore Ravens and Pittsburgh Steelers. The class action suit, filed 4 years ago, still hasn't had a trial date. It has stalled in the legal system, with the league petitioning the U.S. Supreme Court to reverse a lower court ruling and force Flores into arbitration where Goodell could potentially rule on the dispute. Goodell wouldn't delve deeply into the matter on February 2nd, which was not surprising given the legal ramifications. Yet he doubled down on the responsibility, as he put it, for him to maintain the power to settle arbitration cases. It is part of the Commissioner's role, has been and continues to be, and is an important element in giving resolution to issues so that we can move forward without unnecessary litigation, Goodell said. So beyond that, it's all left up to the lawyers to go from there. Still, the optics of Florida's case could strike to the heart of frustration for black coaches. Something's just not right. Goodell pushed back on question about the perception of the Rooney Rule interviews, yet the tone of the question came from the same place as Flores' suit. I think the rule has been seen as a positive by our clubs by giving them an opportunity to look at the diverse set of candidates, Goodell said. They make the choice ultimately, but I think it's shown them the value of looking at talent where you might not know what you may not see. Teams are trying to get the coach they think they can win with. As Goodell noted, there were 10 openings for the current cycle, the inference being that more openings are coming in time. Left unsaid, though, was the prospect of another Groundhog Day. U.S. Olympic flag bearers named for opening ceremony. Olympic speed skating champion Aaron Jackson and bobsledder Frank Del Duca have been selected as the flag bearers for Team USA's delegation at the opening ceremony of the Milano Cortina Winter Games. Jackson, who won gold in the women's 500 meters in Beijing in 2022, will be back to defend her title and compete in the 1,000 meters as well. This will mark her third Olympic appearance. Being chosen to represent the United States on the world stage is a tremendous honor, Jackson said in a news release. It's a moment that reflects far more than one individual. It represents my family, my teammates, my hometown, and everyone across the country who believes in the power of sport. Del Duca, a sergeant in the U.S. Army stationed in Lake Placid, New York, made his Olympic Winter Games debut in Beijing and has been in the sport for over a decade. He is part of the U.S. Army's World Class Athlete Program, WCAP. Being a flag bearer for Team USA is an incredible honor, Del Duca said. It was also quite the surprise. I'm grateful for the support from my teammates, coaches, and staff, Team USA, U.S. Army, WCAP, family and friends, and everyone who has helped me on this journey. Jackson and Del Duca were chosen by a vote of the Team USA athletes, and their selection was announced Tuesday, February 3rd, by the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee. Jackson becomes the 8th speed skater to earn the honor of Team USA flag bearer, while Del Duca becomes the 6th bobsledder to carry the flag. The opening ceremony will be held Friday at Milano San Siro Olympic Stadium in Milan. It will be broadcast live Friday on NBC and Peacock beginning at 2 p.m. ET. Primetime coverage will begin at 8 ET/PT on NBC and Peacock. Aramark sued after alleged assault. Family suit includes NRG Park Management. It should have been a triumphant NFL Sunday afternoon. A mother and father brought their 2 young sons to watch the Houston Texans play the Arizona Cardinals at the NRG Stadium on December 14th. It was the family's first NFL game, which they attended with a group of friends from their Houston area youth football league. Their oldest son, an outgoing 8-year-old who lives and breathes football, was especially excited. He loves the Kansas City Chiefs and hopes to play college football. But his parents say their son's game day experience was corrupted when an Aramark employee allegedly pulled down the boy's pants and attempted to sexually assault him in a stadium bathroom, according to a civil lawsuit the family filed January 12th in Harris County, Texas. He has been having some night terrors since then and asking questions like, "Why did God let this happen to me?" The boy's mother told USA Today. The accused former Aramark employee, Uche Nixon, is named as a defendant in the suit and is also facing criminal charges related to the incident. Other defendants are Aramark and ASM Global, now known as Legends Global, the company that manages NRG Park, where the stadium is located. The family is represented by attorney Anna Greenberg of firm Blizzard Greenberg. The suit claims that Aramark was negligent in hiring Nixon, who court records show had a criminal history of sexual misconduct, and argues that both Aramark and ASM Global failed their duty to provide a safe environment at the NRG Stadium. The lawsuit does not name the boy or his parents. To protect the identity of a victim of alleged sexual assault, USA Today is referring to them using only their initials used in the civil lawsuit. There's a lot of people here that need to look within and that are ultimately responsible for this, the boy's father, J.S., told USA Today. He's a very, very strong kid, I said. We're going to make sure that we will tell this story so that it doesn't happen to any other kids, and we're going to be the hero that they didn't even know about because we're going to put a stop to this. It just doesn't look right. According to the lawsuit, Nixon was working in NRG Stadium during the Cardinals-Texans game. In the third quarter, the boy's mother, identified in the suit as ES, took her son, identified as JRS in the lawsuit, to use a men's bathroom and waited outside. JRS, a third grader, came out of the bathroom adjusting his pants. As they returned to their seats, a man approached the boy's mother and said he saw an employee with her son inside the restroom and that it just didn't look right, the lawsuit said. ES questioned JRS, and he told her that a man pulled down his pants in the restroom. The boy's father took JRS back to the bathroom and pointed him to identify the man. JRS pointed at Nixon, who hid inside a storage closet and was eventually apprehended by police officers. In a forensic interview with the Houston Police Department on December 19th, JRS said a man instructed him to go with him into a bathroom stall. The boy complied because they identified the man, who wore a purple shirt, as an employee. Inside the locked stall, a man pulled down the boy's pants and underwear. After the man dropped his own pants, the boy ran out of the stall. Court documents state that the police reviewed surveillance video that showed Nixon wearing a purple polo shirt, entering and leaving the restroom around the time of the reported incident. Nixon later told police that he'd asked the boy if he wanted to see Nixon's Pokemon card collection and that the boy got scared and ran away, according to court documents. Aramark, in a response filed to the court on January 30th, denied all allegations in the family's complaint. Legends Global has not yet filed a response. Nixon, age 21, remains in the Harris County Jail, awaiting a scheduled court hearing on February 5th. He's charged with one felony count of indecency with a child and one felony count of attempted aggravated sexual assault of a child. His attorney declined to comment for this story. Aramark did not answer questions from USA Today about its hiring process or background check procedure, but said in a statement that Nixon is no longer an employee. We are aware of this very disturbing situation. The person in question is no longer employed with our organization, and we are fully cooperating with the authorities on their investigation, Aramark's statement said. A spokesperson for Legends Global said the company does not comment on pending litigation. A spokesperson for NRG Park, which is not a defendant in the suit, said, NRG Park is aware of the lawsuit that has been filed. Because this matter involves an active criminal case and pending litigation, we are unable to comment on the allegations or specifics of the case. The safety and security of all guests is of the utmost importance to NRG Park. We work closely with law enforcement and our contracted partners to maintain a secure environment at all events. Lasting mental wounds. Although a hospital examination revealed no physical injuries to their son, ES and JS are concerned about the institutional failures that put him in harm's way. Harris County court records show that in 2022, Nixon was charged with indecency with a child and indecent assault in 2 separate instances. The charges were later dismissed. The lawsuit argues that Aramark either failed to properly vet Nixon prior to hiring him or knowingly disregarded the results of his background check. ES and JS want to know why Nixon was allowed to work near children, and they want Aramark and other companies to scrutinize their hiring and staffing policies. Regardless of the size of the event or who attends, people should be able to go out with their families and not have to worry about the absolute worst happening to them while they're attending a sports event or racing event or the rodeo, JS said. It definitely takes the excitement away and just brings anxiety, honestly enough to go where you don't really want to go. ES and JS describe their oldest son as extremely extroverted with a golden retriever personality, a kid who makes friends with anyone and loves to be active. When he's not on the football field where his best positions are corner and receiver, he's playing football video games or watching his favorite player, Patty, Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes. Since the incident at NRG Stadium, however, his confidence is shaken, and he's becoming withdrawn. His parents say he hasn't shown much interest in his hobbies or being around family and friends. He loves everyone and everything. He's got the biggest heart, JS said. I hope it doesn't take that away from him because, his light is so bright. JS said he hopes his family can reach the point where they feel comfortable attending a football game together again. He wants to teach his kids that they shouldn't let others control their lives. But JS and ES worry about the lasting impact this will have on their oldest son, who was at the age where he was just starting to embrace his independence. How is he going to feel in the future trusting employees in places? ES said, it's just unfortunately really starts to take away trust of adults and people that you believe you should be able to trust. And now it's kind of shattered. ES and JS urge parents to have difficult conversations with their children to protect them. While they wait for the lawsuit to move forward, the family is attempting to live life as normal. But they know some things will never be the same. JRS recently talked to his 6-year-old brother and warned him about what to do if he encounters a similar situation. And as Christmas approached, the 8-year-old asked his parents for a special gift. Instead of a PS5, he was saying, I just wish Santa could give me an eraser to take it out of my head, ES said. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 30 minutes after the hour. Mariners land final piece of the puzzle. The Seattle Mariners, who have been trying to get St. Louis Cardinals utility man Brendan Donovan since the World Series concluded, finally got their man Monday, February 2nd in a 3-way trade that included the Tampa Bay Rays. The Mariners' price was steep, giving up 2 prospects and a draft pick to grab the man whom they believe could be the missing piece for their first World Series appearance. The Cardinals, who are in a massive rebuild, will receive prize pitching prospect Jurrangelo Sagente and outfield prospect Ty Pete from Seattle, outfield prospect Colton Ledbetter from Tampa, and 2 Comp B draft picks, the 68th overall from Seattle and the 72nd overall from Tampa. The Rays will receive young third baseman Ben Williamson from the Mariners. Donovan, an all-star last season and Gold Glove winner in 2022 as a utility man, headlines the package. While scouts are divided about Donovan's best position between second base and left field, he is expected to primarily play third base for the Mariners. The reality is that his best position is at the plate. He has a career .282 batting average with a .361 on-base percentage and a .411 slugging percentage with 40 home runs and 97 doubles with a .772 OPS. He struck out in just 13% of his plate appearances last season. The acquisition of Donovan, age 29, who will be a free agent after 2027, gives the Mariners 5 players at the top of the lineup who made the All-Star team in the past 2 seasons, joining Julio Rodriguez, Cal Raleigh, Josh Naylor, and Randy Arozarena. But for the Cardinals, Donovan represents the last major player to be sent packing in their massive rebuild. They traded ace Sonny Gray and the first baseman Williamson Contreras earlier this winter in a separate trades to the Boston Red Sox, and Gold Glove third baseman Nolan Arenado was traded to the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Cardinals' payroll is expected to be the lowest in the National League Central, dropping below $100 million. Sagente, selected with the 15th pick in the 2024 draft, is the best prospect in the trade, ranking as baseball's 91st best prospect. According to MLB Pipeline, he actually throws right-handed and left-handed, but the Mariners were planning to have him pitch exclusively right-handed this spring. Pete was the number 30 overall pick in the 2023 draft. The Mariners, who are now American League West favorites, believe this could be the finishing touch to a season to remember. The Cardinals, who have traded 8 players off their major league roster since last year's trade deadline, are hoping they have the makings of a team that can be competitive again in a few years. And for the Rays, they got the right-handed third baseman they've been seeking, trying to stay relatively competitive in the loaded AL East. Can Texas repeat as season dawns? Texas Tech hopes not. Step up to the plate. The 2026 softball season is here. Texas won its first national championship in program history after defeating in-state rival Texas Tech in a winner-take-all Game 3 in the 2025 NCAA tournament. But the Red Raiders are ranked number 1 in at least one preseason poll on the strength of Najari Kennedy's right arm and the team's top-ranked transfer class. Obviously, it will be very difficult to improve upon our 2025 season. But as a staff, we feel like we have made tremendous improvements as we enter our second season as Texas Tech head coach Jerry Glasgow said. Here are 5 storylines headed into the 2026 softball season, including some early Player of the Year nominations. Who won the transfer portal? The addition of Stanford transfer Najari Canada paid instant dividends for Texas Tech in Jerry Glasgow's first season as head coach. The Red Raiders made their first Women's College World Series appearance last season and fell just short of the program's first national championship as runner-up to Texas. Don't be surprised to see Texas Tech back in Oklahoma City. The Red Raiders reloaded their roster with a top transfer class that brings depth at the pitcher position and extra pop to the lineup. The 7 newcomers combined for the 105 home runs last season, an upgrade from Texas Tech's 60 homers. Texas Tech added All-Americans Mia Williams, Florida, Taylor Pennell, Tennessee, Jasmine Byrne, Ohio State, plus Caitlin Terry, UCLA, Laggy Kuroga, Cal, and Jackie Liss and Desiree Spearman, Southern Illinois. We wanted to add depth and experience in as many places as possible as we try to win the national championship, Glasgow said. Can Texas defend championship? The Longhorns are in prime position to repeat, with many contributors of their championship squad returning. Sure, the departure of senior third baseman Mia Scott is a blow, but Texas will have continuity in the circle with ace pitcher Tegan Cavan and catcher Reese Atwood back. Cavan had a 28-5 record with a 2.16 ERA and 230 strikeouts last season, while Atwood was named the NFCA Catcher of the Year after leading the team in home runs, 21 RBIs, 89 slugging percentage, .822, and walks, 41. Atwood and Cavan are among 10 players from Texas championship squad that are coming back. 4 of those players, Atwood, Cavan, Caden Henry, and Katie Stewart, were named to the 2026 preseason All-Sec team selected by a vote of the conference's 15 head coaches. Texas 4 selections tie Oklahoma for the most. The Longhorns were also picked to win the 2026 SEC championship. The Longhorns will also get a boost from the return of shortstop Viviana Martinez, who was sidelined the entire 2025 season with an injury. Martinez started 61 games in 2024, had a .376 batting average with 70 hits, 52 RBIs, and 46 runs. Texas led the nation in hits, 630 last season, and its lineup will be even more dangerous with the additions of transfers Kaya Altmaier from Arizona and Taylor Anderson, Oklahoma State, and Brenlee Gonzalez, Texas Tech. What's up with Oklahoma this season? Oklahoma's reign of 4 consecutive national titles ended last season, but the Sooners look to return to softball supremacy with a squad that features a mix of veterans, the top-ranked 2026 recruiting class, and key transfers. Let's start in the circle. Right-handed pitcher Sam Landry was the Sooners' ace last season with 191.2 total innings pitched, 114 more innings than left-handed pitcher Kirsten Deal. With Landry having graduated, Deal will most likely get the ball and look to bounce back from a down year. Where her ERA was up and strikeouts were down, she posted a 10-2 record with 50 strikeouts and a 3.42 ERA in 77.2 innings last season, compared to her 1.97 ERA and 68 strikeouts and 78.1 innings in 2024. Oklahoma head coach Patty Gasso brought in reinforcements with transfer pitcher Sidney Berzin, who recorded an 18-8 record at 2.46 ERA as LSU's ace in 2025. That's not the only additions. Oklahoma's recruiting class includes Keegan Baker, Kylie Hojang, Jarrell Ori-Malo, Malaya Marjam Finch, Ella Kate, E.K. Smith, and Peyton Westra. This is one of the best incoming freshman classes that we've had in a while, Gasso said. There's a little bit of everything from pitching to great defense, but some big-time hitters are going to make this offense powerful and elite. All of these athletes fit the championship mindset mentality. We can't forget about the returning Oklahoma players, Gabby Garcia, Nellie McEnroe Marinas, Ella Parker, and Cassidy Pickering were all named to the 2026 All-Sec team. Despite battling an injury much of the season, Parker hit 15 homers and drove in 53 runs while batting .423. Player of the Year candidates: Texas Tech pitcher Najari Kennedy, the The 6-foot right-handed senior was unanimously named to the Big 12 preseason team after posting a 1.11 ERA last season and leading the Red Raiders with 11 home runs. Kennedy was named to the USA Softball 2026 Collegiate Player of the Year watch list. She was one of 3 finalists for the award in 2025 after winning it in 2024 at Stanford. Texas catcher Reese Atwood, the 6-foot senior, becomes the first Longhorns player to hit 20 or more home runs in back-to-back seasons and led the nation with 89 RBIs, the second most in program history, behind her own 90 mark in 2024. She was also solid behind the plate and posted a .988 fielding percentage with 313 putouts, 18 assists, and 4 errors. Nebraska pitcher Jordy Fromm, the 5'8" two-way player, recorded 23 homers and 8.462 batting average last season, in addition to 286 strikeouts and a 1.56 ERA. She was named Big Ten Player of the Year and Big Ten Pitcher of the Year, becoming the first player to earn both in the same season. Tennessee pitcher Karen Pickens, the 6'1" senior, pitched over 226.2 innings last season and posted a 25-11 record with a 1.17 ERA and 306 strikeouts. She was named SEC Pitcher of the Year after leading the conference in ERA games started 34, complete games 25, shutouts 7, innings pitched, and strikeouts. How much more parity is there in softball? Number 1 overall seed Texas A&M was upset in its home regional in College Station, Texas, by Liberty in the postseason, marking the first time in history the top overall seed failed to advance out of its own regional. The defeat highlights the growing parity in college softball, which can be tied directly to the transfer portal and name, image, and likeness, NIL, money being poured into programs. Landing a star player can change a program's entire trajectory. Texas Tech won the program's first Big 12 championship and made its first WCWS appearance following the addition of Najari Kennedy in the transfer portal. It was made possible by the Kennedy's landmark NIL deal, which paid her upward of $1.1 million, believed to be the largest in softball history. Kennedy landed another deal for the 2026 season and helped attract the team's top transfer class. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of the USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 45 minutes after the hour. NY owners backed Women's Institute launch. Brooklyn Nets and New York Liberty co-owner Clara Wu Tsai continues to invest in women. A female athlete-focused organization, the Women's Health, Sports and Performance Institute, WHSP, opened its doors January 29th with more than $50 million in funding from the company's ownership group, led by co-founders Dr. Catherine Ackerman and David and Jane Ott, and Wu Tsai, who began investing in the project in 2021. The Institute, which works with the International Olympic Committee and the U.S. and Paralympic Committee, is the first one-stop shop to combine female athlete-focused research, education, and medical care under one roof. WHSP is also a member institution and research partner of the Wu Tsai Human Performance Alliance, a $220 million collaborative research alliance founded by Wu Tsai and her husband, Nets and Liberty co-owner Joe Tsai. When there's big announcements like this, people think, oh, this had to be the time because things are moving so quickly for women's sports. But really, we've been working on something like this for a couple of decades, Ackerman told USA Today. This research gap has persisted even as women's sports are exploding. So we know that this investment in women's sports now is really moving quickly. It's going much faster than the investment in men's sports. So it is a magical time for female athletes, but really the research is lacking. Wu Tsai scientific advisor contacted Ackerman at the beginning of the 2020 COVID pandemic. The Nets and Liberty co-owner was interested in developing a human performance alliance that would study health and performance at a high level and apply the lessons learned to the broader population. Ackerman eventually joined a group of leaders Wu Tsai tapped to write a proposal for a human alliance and was tasked with leading the challenge for female athlete health and research discovery. Wu Tsai also gave $220 million to get the alliance off the ground. From there, the idea of WHSP slowly took shape. With investment from the Otts and Wu Tsai, a physical space was built to continue research that would help solve problems for female athletes that Ackerman says have existed for decades. According to Ackerman, Wusai is interested in big discoveries that show how far an athlete can push their bodies, and the aughts are focused on gathering basic information that can be distributed to athlete entourages to help prevent injuries. WHSP plans to address issues related to adolescent, collegiate, professional, and postpartum athletes. However, Ackerman shared with USA Today the key areas of focus include relative energy deficiency in sports, REDs, for athletes who experience low energy availability or are not getting enough calories in for how much they're exercising. Additionally, the WHSP also plans to prioritize postmenopausal women. Success to me is that we continue to move the needle forward and we can have people cooperating with each other so that we can get answers for them faster, Ackerman said. There's so many silos in medicine and in sports and in care. I think if we really want to see change for women, we have to come together and realize there's a lot that different people can contribute. And this is going to be a home base for people to work together to do that. Defending champ LSU starts #1 in preseason. We have something in common with the legendary groundhog, which is to say we don't actually have the power to make spring come early. It is our hope, however, that the arrival of the preseason USA Today Sports College baseball coaches poll brings you some solace with the promise of warmer days ahead. Defending national champion LSU will open the campaign with the #1 ranking. The Tigers received exactly half of the 31st place votes, but overall finished 9 poll points ahead of second-ranked UCLA. The Bruins were picked first on all but one of the remaining 15 ballots, and they had a relatively small group of West Coast representatives in the preseason poll. LSU figures to have stiffer competition in its conference as the SEC comprises fully half of the top 10. That list includes a couple of more top 5 entries, #3 Texas and #5 Arkansas, #6 Mississippi State, which received a single #1 vote, and #9 Auburn also start with lofty aspirations. 9 SEC squads in all opened the campaign in the top 25. The poll also features 9 teams from the ACC headed by #4 Georgia Tech and #8 North Carolina. Coastal Carolina, last season's College World Series runner-up in Omaha, Nebraska, starts this year at #7, joining the Chanticleers from the Sun Belt Conference in #20, Southern Mississippi. TCU grabs the final spot in the top 10 with the Horned Frogs, and #24 Arizona starting out as the only ranked squads from the Big 12. Oregon State, which made it all the way to Omaha last year as an independent in baseball, opens at #14. Lifetime section. Gen Z is turning to TV to fill void of sex. In Los Angeles, bars are hosting watch parties for the highly anticipated weekly releases of Tell Me Lies. And in New York City, more than 2,000 people have RSVP'd for an upcoming heated rivalry look-alike contest. Both shows have captivated young viewers enough to create a cultural moment rarely seen outside of sports in today's couch potato streaming-friendly TV era. They're getting people out of the house to gather with other fans. These shows also are hot, filled with sex scenes, body parts, and forbidden and fiery romantic interactions. And yet research shows Gen Z, the cohort born in the years 1997 to 2012, is having less sex than earlier generations. For young viewers who aren't engaging in sex themselves but are seeking out emotional validation and connection, these stories may help fill a gap, says Virginia Grammaroso, age 25, a Chicagoland health educator who works with middle schoolers, high schoolers, and young adults. Grammasaro says that just because studies show Gen Z is having less sex doesn't mean they're not interested and curious about sex. I think they still have desires related to sex. Consuming that media might also fill that void. Grammasaro says, why Gen Z is having less sex. Research shows a general decline in teens and young adults engaging in sexual activity. In 2023, 32% of teens said they had sex, compared with 47% of teens in 2013, according to Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The trend extends to older Gen Zers, too. About 24% of adults ages 18 to 29 had no sex in the past year, a figure that has doubled since 2010, according to a study from the Institute for Family Studies. Emily Moorhead, a Texas-based licensed counselor with expertise in sex and relationships, praised smutty entertainment for how it can serve as a conversation starter for young people. When formal sex education is lacking or inconsistent, especially about LGBTQ plus sexual health, she says, young people use what's around them, television, books, social media, to fill in the gap. I think Gen Z is craving information, and if the only media that they're getting representation with is social media or porn, they're not learning about real life sex and real life relationships that are safe and consensual and pleasurable, Moorhead says. Grammaroso adds that for some viewers, watching sex on TV can offer a sense of control that real-life dating doesn't amid ghosting, constant swiping on apps, and social pressures. I think that the media can tie into that because they have an outlet for still engaging and almost expressing and connecting to their sexual wants and needs and questions without actually having to go out and talk to people and date people. Grammaroso says, Gen Zers' sex lives and dating style reflect a deeper trend of risk aversion. Young people also are drinking less. Though those things can be positive, they can also be indicators that some Gen Zers may be socially isolated. Much of Gen Z missed out on pivotal years in the classroom or office during the COVID-19 pandemic, which hurt their ability to socialize. This follows a general trend of people who are reporting less of a desire to get married and have families at a young age. When sexy becomes mainstream, Moorhead says sexy entertainment has become more popular as Hollywood and the publishing industry have modernized how we speak about female pleasure. Both Heated Rivalry and Tell Me Lies are based on book series. Claire Mazur, one of the founders of romance entertainment company 831 Stories, told USA Today that spicy romance is now a mainstream form of sex content. That's a direct counterpoint to porn culture. People also may be watching as much for the intimacy as they are for the sex. With Tell Me Lies, for example, a lot of viewers relate to the sentiment of knowing a person isn't good for you, but struggling to walk away. Where Heated Rivalry succeeds, Moorhead notes, is in depicting sex and love in a way that shows communication and consent. Experts say that while it's great to enjoy types of media that can't replace social emotional connection, watching relationships and watching these things play out cannot be in place of experiencing and living and creating relationships themselves. Making Waves, Connor Story. Talk about someone heating up in Hollywood. Connor Story, one of the two breakout stars of HBO's Max's queer hockey romance Heated Rivalry, has been tapped to host the February 28th episode of Saturday Night Live. NBC has announced. Story, age 25, and co-star Hudson Williams have skyrocketed to fame in the Canadian series, which follows rival hockey stars' complicated romantic relationship as they play for opposing professional and Olympic teams. Story, who made his late-night debut last month on Late Night with Seth Meyers, will be joined on SNL by musical guest Mumford & Sons. You've been listening to a reading of the USA Today for Wednesday, February 4th. We read the USA Today weekdays at noon. For more information, call us at 821-5555. Your reader for this hour has been Claudia, and I thank you for listening.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have episode number 25 of Ron Chernow's book on Mark Twain. Following that, at 3 o'clock is Healthy Living, and at 4 o'clock, a re-airing of today's Buffalo News. Stay with us for these readings and more. Are you facing challenges with vision loss and need help with your smartphone, sending emails, navigating the internet, and staying connected with your family? VIA, Visually Impaired Advancement, is offering free classes for seniors weekly at multiple locations with free assistance for your smartphone, email, and internet skills. There's a new session every week, and it rotates between the South Towns and the North Towns. It's at your local Erie County libraries and at 10 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. For more information, call Elhana Porter at 716-888-4632. Again, that's 716-888-4632. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another